Welcome back to the Left, Right, and Center show, as it's still called. We still haven't picked a name. So as you can see, it's just me and Nate again. I think we mentioned Chris he was out last week, but he's gonna be out for a couple weeks. He had some things going on. So for a couple weeks, it's just gonna be us. We decided to try a little something different this week. Usually we prepare one or two main topics and we talk a couple of news and memes things and whatever. But this week it's just pure news and memes, go with the flow, kind of open speech. So if you're here watching, feel free to chime in the chat. We're going to try and focus on that a little bit more. And
let's try that too. Definitely. Love the audience participation. So this is definitely the podcast to do it, because we won't be 10 feet down a rabbit hole. So we might actually see it this time. So
yeah. So I'm gonna try and focus on watching it this time. Last time it was just the two of us. It was a bit of a struggle. It's a lot more engaging with just two people, so my attention couldn't get changed as well. But I'll get better at multitasking. I swear. I figured let's start off with a funny one. I always like the funny ones. I don't know. I can't help myself.
And then it always comes back to me, and I'm putting on my emo makeup and talking about how the country's going down the shitter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have so many too that aren't really politically related that I want to show you guys, that I want to laugh with you guys about, but I'm like, I can't. This doesn't fit. It's not. So maybe we'll have to throw a segment in there at the end of these some week where we.
Yeah, I mean, hey, look, it's a pretty chill day, anyways.
Yeah.
It's this is the way that the mice or cats will play.
Yeah, this one fits. I thought this was amazing.
Yeah. I thought of Chris the first when I saw that. I was like, oh yeah, this is Chris to a T. But hey, man, look, I would just put Nancy Pelosi's name right there, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I imagine, to be fair, right? I do imagine that the Democrats are going to do the same thing, for sure. So it's unfortunate. I wish there was something where if a bill, passed the House, there was an overall vote, and if 30% or something of the House says this is something we need to discuss, it's at least discussed and voted on. I don't necessarily need things to get passed all the time, but I think if there's a large enough group of people that want to talk about it and think it's important, it shouldn't be up to basically one man to just be like, yeah, that doesn't tickle my balls, I'm out.
No, okay, look, I don't think it's that at all. I disagree, right? I actually kind of respect what he did there, and it's probably just because I'm Republican. But no, seriously, there's a reason for it, right? And it's for those who don't know exactly how DC works. Basically, whenever a bill comes up for a vote or is going to come up for a vote, they have people who go around and they count all the votes, so they know exactly how the vote is going to go. And the thing that Mitch McConnell was doing is that when all the votes were tallied up, and he knew that the thing wouldn't pass, he just wouldn't bring the thing up, right? And the reason why that pissed people off is because a lot of times bills get put forward just so that politicians can sort of grandstand and have debates about it and get their next sort of campaign sound bites in, right, for the next re-election videos. So I honestly I don't really care that Mitch wouldn't bring many of those things up for a vote. What I do care about. Actually, just kidding. I don't care.
I mean, just because something isn't going to pass.
Then
I guess two reasons. If you know something's not going to pass, I understand not wanting to waste time. But there's two reasons I think it's important to talk about it, and one is so that constituents know how their elected officials would vote on something, right? By not even bringing it up to a vote, you don't get a chance to really evaluate the person that you put into office on topics that may be important to you. Uh-huh. And then the second one is maybe something doesn't pass this time, but by discussing it and having it out in the open, you get some points on either side where they say, okay, let's review it after we change this and that. And I know that's often done behind the scenes.
Yeah.
but I'm more interested in it being, visible for the public to see.
Again, the visibility of all these things. Tim Pool brought this up a couple of times on some of his recent podcasts, and I realized like he's 100% correct about this. I remember being, for example, super excited when they did the public hearings with Facebook and Google, and they dragged them before Congress and this, that, and the other thing. And I remember even thinking back then, I was like, in this most recent round of them, I was like, I thought we did this before, but yeah, they're going to get him this time. They're going to nail him. And then, Ted Cruz would just like drill into Mark Zuckerberg and drill into Jack Dorsey, and then nothing would happen. Right. And it's like nothing, not even a little bit, nothing at all changed. So it's like the public spectacle is grating on me a little bit. I don't see very much use for it. Besides getting people free campaign clips. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that too. I know when we were talking offline the other day, we were talking about the Suez Canal blockage and how much of a financial impact that was.
Yeah.
And so that meme that I showed you was wrong. Fake news. Okay, it was wrong. So for the viewers, the meme I showed him said something along the lines of one ship blocking a canal or whatever costs the global economy more than COVID. Something along those lines, right?
Oh, was that fake news?
Yeah, it didn't. It costs a shit ton.
Yeah.
So I didn't do a ton of research, and I'm sure these numbers are very wildly because they're going to be very difficult to calculate. There's a lot of assumptions that have to get made. But from what I read was that the cost of COVID was in the trillions. Let me see if I can find. Yeah, so IMF estimated the cost of COVID being around 28 trillion in lost output.
And lost output? What about the fact that we spent, 6 trillion? No, 5 trillion? How much did we spend as a country?
I don't know.
There was like a 1.9 trillion package. There was, I can't remember anymore. It's been a year.
I'm just happy that we have the largest package.
Hey, always got to have the largest package.
U.S. largest packages. Let's go.
This is why this is all males on this show. This so we can say this.
No, I'm talking about stimulus packages. I like getting checks in the mail, my dude. Yeah. So anyway, and the Suez Canal blockage has been estimated to be to cost about $54 billion.
Jesus.
But think about that. A ship got blown sideways.
Yeah.
And it cost the global economy $54 billion in 6 days. I mean, almost $10 billion a day. The math on this worked out to be $6.7 million a minute. That thing was sitting sideways.
That's insane.
And I mean, for some companies, it was more and less. Like I know some companies weren't confident that they were going to be able to free the ship out of the Suez Canal, and so they had their ships sailing down and around. Right? They told them to
reject modernity, embrace tradition.
So
yeah, I was so confused as to why. I mean, I thought about it eventually. Like, you think about how much momentum those massive ships have. Yeah, look, it makes sense. I was so confused at first. I was like, it got stuck. Just unstick it. Like, dig a little bit and push. Like, I don't understand what the problem is.
I watched a really good video on it, and I don't have it pulled up because I didn't expect we'd get into this. But they did some back of the napkin physics and engineering math. Said, okay, the ship weighs this much. It sits this deep in the water based on the pictures. It's this deep in the sand. Yeah. Sand has, wet sand has this type of friction coefficient, et cetera, et cetera.
Fucking engineers.
And calculated, it all made sense to me, bro. Anyway, they calculated the force that's going to be required if you're just trying to pull it out, right? To get it loose. And I don't know if you've ever stepped your foot into sand or mud. Like it just grabs on. It's bad. But it was like, I don't know, I forget. Let's just say it was like 220,000 foot tons or whatever it was.
Yeah. And then I'm sure
then they said, okay, how would you pull it out? And they said, well, this ship is expected to be the strongest towing ship in the world, and it could pull like 1/220th or something of that. And they're like, you need 220 of the strongest in the world that have tugging capability to pull this out. Oh, and by the way, there's only one in existence.
So basically, what did they do? They ended up just digging. They just dug it out.
Yeah, they dug out around it. They had brought in some dredgers and other things to do that. But that's why it took so long. They had to dig out all around it. And I mean, I'm sure you've played in the sand in the beach.
Oh yeah.
You pull out a handful of sand and 3/4 of a handful goes back in the hole. So
along with the escalator, along with the excavator that you're sitting in, like, oh shit.
Yeah, and so they, this video I watched talked about excavators just don't have a boom long enough. There isn't any that really exist because the ship, I think the ship sits like 60 feet deep in the water or something. They're not shallow, right? But they got it free, which is the important thing. They've talked about putting another canal in. I know we're kind of getting way on the side topic here, but
over by Israel, right?
Yeah, they never did it because of expenses and whatnot, but this might re-trigger that investigation, see if it's worth doing. I don't know.
A little bit of redundancy. Everybody loves redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let me do my bit here. So I'm gonna play a couple seconds of this. This is I have a love-hate relationship with Bill Maher, right? I really don't like the late night comedian format anymore. I can't really stand any of the Jimmy Kimmels or whatever. I can't. I just can't do them. They're just, well, first of all, they're too liberal for me, and I'm into politics. So it's like, maybe if I was just kind of like a default conservative, maybe I could just kind of like take the slugging fest every single night. But I just can't stand them. But love-hate relationship with Bill Maher. He just seems like out of the blue, he has a incredibly rational take on things. It's the strangest thing. But I really like this one of the segments that he did. This segment's a little bit old, but I kind of want to use it to preface the way that I'm going to talk about the news tonight, which is that America is very, very unserious right now. That we have a lot of first world problems. So I'm going to play a couple seconds of this, and let's see. All right, I know how to do this. I've been doing this for a while. Here we go.
And finally, new rule, you're not going to win the battle for the 21st century if you are a silly people. And Americans are a silly people. That's the classic phrase from Lawrence of Arabia when Lawrence tells his Bedouin allies that as long as they stay a bunch of squabbling tribes, they will remain a silly people. Well, we're the silly people now. Do you know who doesn't care that there's a stereotype of a Chinese man in a Dr. Seuss book? China. All 1.4 billion of them could give a crouching tiger flying fuck.
Perfect. And he goes on, and he just like goes into it. Like, we are so wrapped up in our own dumbassery. Meanwhile, there's actual slave labor and genocide going on in China. Right. I just love that skit. Everybody should go watch that skit. It's freaking hilarious. It's Bill Maher losing to China. Right. It's like we it's like, it's not that we're losing, it's like we've lost. Right. We've definitely lost at this point.
I'm generally in agreement with him, but I'm not in agreement with your take on it in a way, I think. I don't think that many people give a fuck here either. I don't know anyone that does. Well, I take that back. I know one person. One person that does.
Listen. Okay, so on that point, Tim, what do you think about this? Because every time I click on a HuffPost article or something really, really ridiculous from the left, because I have to see it, right? I just have to go in and fucking hate click on this link, right? What would you think the ratio of I believe this to I'm clicking on this because I hate this so much? What do you think that ratio would be? Like what if when you clicked on an article to get to the website, all you had to do was just answer one question? Did you click on this because you hated it or because you like it? Right?
I don't actually think those are the only options.
95-5.
Those aren't the only options, though. Like, I click on a lot of those because I'm like, what is this about? You know, like, not that I hate it, not that I believe it, but more that it's...
Okay, so then let me rephrase that. That's the only metric I care about. So love it, hate it, or neither. Right? We're trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
So
I'd say the vast majority of people are probably in the hate it or neither with... let me do it this way. Probably neither, 50 to 60%, hate it, 20 to 30%, and believe it, 10%. Something like that.
I've been thinking, like, I'm really wondering, like, it is the only reason why this stuff gets amplified so much is because we have the cross aisle fracas where everybody's hate clicking on each other's articles, and very few people actually believe in the... Well, that wouldn't be true. This would be like a one-way thing. Like, the only reason why the far left is a big thing right now is because the right hate clicks.
I think it's more, I think we've talked about it before, but I think it's the cover your ass thing. It's not that a lot of people care. It's that enough powerful people care to cover their ass that they make a big deal out of it. And it just becomes its own thing, right? Like, yeah. Dr. Seuss, the estate of Dr. Seuss deciding to not sell that book anymore. It wouldn't have been a story had they not made that decision, and whatever reason they made it for, right? Like it was their own thing, but it might have been 10 people that were petitioning them to do that. Yeah. And had they not done it, we probably would have never heard about the petitions. And, I mean, there's probably more than 10 people. Maybe there's 10,000, right?
People weren't buying the book anyways.
Right. So, but we hear about it because a person decided to do something to either cover their ass or to appease, that group of people. And that group is the minority of people.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So my professional advice to any of you out there, any of you, on any side of the aisle, right? Unless you're a no, it doesn't matter. If you get canceled by the far left, regardless of where you are, because they will cancel anybody, including the far left, just to listen to the sweet, sultry sound of my voice. Do not apologize.
This isn't an ASMR podcast, man.
What's that?
This isn't an ASMR podcast. We're not doing that.
No, that's exactly what this is. But listen. Do not, I repeat, do not apologize if you have done nothing wrong, right? If you clearly did something wrong, sure, fine, apologize.
Yeah, I hate that too. It reminds me of back when like they were doing witch hunts. Mm-hmm. Or you hear the medieval times when you were accused of something you didn't do, and it's like, hey, all you got to do is apologize to God.
Yes. This is one of the most sinister things that you can do to a human being, and it's being done probably the least bad way in history. Like, we don't have a genocide in this country, thank God, right? We don't have gulags or anything like that yet. But like all throughout history, like you said, back like Inquisition times, medieval Europe, witch hunting, the Soviet Union, like a tactic that people use, that fanatics who are in control of society use, is to get people who didn't do the thing that they say or are not guilty of any underlying crime to admit to the crime, right? And then they use that and they pivot and they say, look, this person admitted to it. This is a problem. Now we need to go find more people that are doing it. It's like the Salem witch trials were actually the epitome of this, right? Because in the Salem witch trials, it was, if I recall correctly, they accused a whole bunch of people. One person folded, and now to all the zealots and the Puritans, it was like they admitted to it. This is real, right? And then it became that much more real, and then they kept going until they'd killed a whole bunch of people. So it's like it's not just for the health of the country; it's for you individually. It's been my experience that if you basically say "fuck off," the woke mob, like all of the people who want me fired are woke mob people on Twitter who don't actually care about this, right? They actually just want to get the dopamine of being a part of something. Like, you really don't care about the thing that you think I did. You don't. It's like,
I know one or two, maybe two. I know two people in my life, and it's not one. I was wrong earlier, that would probably actually care and are glad that these things are happening. they're not necessarily activists or active in pursuing it. They probably didn't sign any petitions or anything like that. But when these news things come out, they're in full agreement. But that's a minority. I mean, I know hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, right? One or two that I know. Now, I don't know the younger generation that well. 10 years younger than me or more, and you're not much in my circle. So it could be that, a massive portion of the population being younger feel that way. But
well, I think it's the people between our two age groups. Actually, I would say everybody like between Chris and you is generally the purveyors of this culture. Now, I had a lot of hope for Gen Z, but then I heard that they were canceling Eminem. But I don't know.
I love that candy. What did Eminem do? Is it because they ate that one guy's ass in the commercial?
Yeah, that Eminem. It's the red Eminem. No, it's the white Eminem. I'm sorry. What am I thinking?
Marshall Mathers. Yeah, I know what you meant.
Marshall Mathers. Yeah, Slim Shady.
Yeah, that's fine. They'll never find the real.
I was thinking about that. It's kind of funny. If like Gen Z is being accused of being the ones that are canceling Eminem, and like of anybody to be canceled, like Eminem's was a pretty decent candidate this whole time. Like he is horribly sexist to women in all of his songs, like horribly.
To be honest with you, canceling Eminem right now is pretty just moot. Like
no, obviously,
obviously,
the whole thing is stupid. Like, don't cancel anybody.
If you're going to cancel someone, do it when they're actually making content, not 15 years after they stopped.
Oh yeah, he's still kind of big. He's putting stuff out.
Not much. He puts out a little bit here and there. I think he did a song on some specific political topic.
Oh yeah, he dissed Donald Trump. That was like a couple years ago.
But I mean, that's the biggest thing I've heard of about him, and I'm not that I'm huge into the music scene anymore either. But I mean, I like his music. I used to listen to him decently often, I guess.
Same.
But anyway, yeah. Let's see. What should we talk about next? How about Derek Chauvin?
Yeah, let's do it. Trial is ongoing, huh?
Ongoing. So what I want to ask you, I guess, what are some of the talking points on the right that you think are the big things that are impactful on this trial? I mean, there's definitely a lot of testimony and other things that are going on right now we could talk about, but
yeah.
I kind of want to talk more big picture.
Yeah, okay. So the biggest picture, without getting into too much detail. So some people, I think Steven Crowder, who's more of he got
canceled.
Yeah, he got canceled as fuck. I'm not even going to talk about that. I don't care. I mean, I care, but it's like, what's new?
He's totally canceled off YouTube, right? I know I'm vortexing.
Yeah, I think they took his channel down.
Yeah, I heard something about him being totally canceled and permanently demonetized. Even if they get his channels back, he's demonetized.
Yeah, I mean, he's been demonetized before. He fights it. So Steven Crowder, conservative commentator on YouTube. He considers himself a late night host, and he's just basically a conservative. He's a comedian. There's a whole bunch of edgy comedy. I love it. It's very free speechy. But YouTube hates it. So he continually, I think the first time he got demonetized, his channel got demonetized, was when he, I think he made gay jokes about Carlos Maza of it's not Huffington Post. Would have been Vox, right? They accused him of like homophobia or homophobic slurs or something like that. So he rectified that. He finally got remonetized because he won in court or something. And then he just recently got demonetized again, and I think it has to do with the fact that he put up, and I say this, oh God, is YouTube going to ban us now? He put up what he claims to be verified voter fraud information. And he did actually drive to the location. So it was something where he didn't make any sweeping claims. He specifically said, we found these names associated with these addresses, and we had our intern drive to every single one of these addresses, and this was a parking lot, this was an empty lot, this was a underpass. It's like, so that was the episode that he had, and I think he got booted for election fraud. talking about election fraud on YouTube, which is a no-go. So now that we talked about the thing I didn't want to talk about.
Yeah. Done.
Derek Chauvin. Okay, so the biggest talking point, Tim, is that the burden of proof is going to be a heavy one on the state, right? The burden, right? Because it's not just a preponderance of evidence, which is like, oh, it looks like Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd maliciously. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. You need to prove that he intentionally killed George Floyd, right? And there's a whole bunch of different standards with each of the three charges, but it looks like it's going to be hard for the state to get any of them. Honestly, it's to put it the most concessionally, if that's a word. It's going to be much closer than a lot of people are expecting, right? It looks like a slam dunk maybe, but it's not. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, I think that's an important statement that I've been kind of feeling myself as I watch through some of these, news clips and read some of the articles where you hear people say like, this is a slam dunk. It's on camera. He has to get convicted. You talk to people about it like just friends or whatever, and they say the same thing. Like, there's no way he doesn't get convicted. And
right.
I think that mindset's really dangerous because it makes you then, if he doesn't get convicted,
right,
based on legitimate legal reasons, all those people that felt that way now think that something shady had to happen for him to get off.
And now it's warm enough to riot again.
Yeah, like we're protecting him only because he was a police officer. Like, police officers have carte blanche; they can do whatever they want. This is proof, right? Or even though there may be some legit legal precedents why they couldn't convict him for this. And so I think it's extremely dangerous for the news sites, especially, to be saying those things. I think they should be a lot more honest with their approach and say, look, this is a difficult trial.
Yeah.
The things they need to prove.
Even if you're on the left and you believe it's a slam dunk, it's almost like these activist journalists, like the ones who like the activist journalist class being like, the upper crust, sort of like New York elite, like super liberal woke people. It's almost like and maybe I'm wrong about this, but they deliberately write these articles that play up how easily this case is going to go into the bag, so that when it doesn't, they get to watch their activist friends tear the country apart again, because
I've heard that talking point. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that talking point, or the talking point of it's a win-win for that point of view, because either he gets convicted, which is what they want, or he doesn't, and they now have a reason to be able to
right. And I'm not trying to conspiracy theory it. I would mean that a little bit more subconsciously, like something that you do, you shouldn't be doing, but you're not really consciously doing it, but you still kind of like do it, that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think it's going to be hard for them to convict them specifically on Murder 2. I think Murder 3 is something that's going to be easier for them to convict them on. But even that charge being available at this point has been a point of contention.
Yeah.
So for Murder 3, it was removed from the charges and then re-added. And when they tried to re-add it, the judge denied the addition, and then they appealed that, and it got re-added. And I think it's important to talk about a little bit, because I've heard some bad information coming from some actually reputable sources on why Murder 3 shouldn't be there in the first place. One of them is your boy, Mr. Shapiro.
Okay, what you got?
So he's very adamant that Murder 3 is not an appropriate charge, and his statement.
He talked about it today.
Did he? Yeah. So his statement on it, when I saw, which I don't think was from whatever show he did today, is that for Murder 3 there has to be multiple potential victims, and the example he gave in the one I was watching was like firing a gun into a crowd. Like, you didn't intend to necessarily shoot anybody, maybe you're trying to scare them or whatever, but it shows wanting
I remember him talking about that. He actually did a better job today. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it, but you're correct.
I believe you. He probably did a better job explaining it, but he's still wrong. Like his contention is that you have to endanger multiple people, and from the research.
Attention, man. I think that is.
You're gonna make me pull up his YouTube thing where he literally says that.
Yeah, was that full context? Did you see like when he kept talking after that, or what he said before that?
I watched the whole video. I didn't just watch the 30 seconds that he talked about.
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
So anyway, in the one I watched, he was like his argument was third degree doesn't count because of that, right? And he was saying that the way he said it was third degree requires depraved mind. Depraved mind means like there's a group of people and you're acting in a way that puts people's lives in danger, and then one of them dies from it. Is basically what he was saying.
I don't think the group thing was part of it. It's potentially a part of it, but I think you're conflating a couple things. Like for example, if you fired your firearm into a group of people and somebody got hurt, or or whatever the next scenario is. I think that was one of many scenarios he brought up. I mean, look. We don't.
I'll wait until you're talking about something, and I'll see if I can find that particular clip, and I'll pull it up in a minute. But yeah. So anyway, that's what he said in the video I watched.
I didn't mean to nitpick that.
That's what I've also been reading. That's what I've also been reading on a lot of sites, and the bottom line is, that seems to be what possibly used to be the interpretation of the law in Minnesota. Because there's a police officer right now who is appealing his conviction of he got third degree murder for shooting a woman when he was on duty. And the reason, and so to go back a second, the reason I was bringing that up is Shapiro also says that charge should never have been reinstated.
He did say that, yes.
And that charge was reinstated because they're using this previous case as a precedent to say, yes, this charge belongs here because in this case, this officer was convicted when there wasn't a multiple of people around. It was a single individual that was put in danger. So, he's in my opinion just wrong on those 2 points. So he's very adamant about those. So the one thing that's interesting, and I think where people are probably where this confusion may come from, or where it's interpreted one way or the other, is the wording. So the wording of murder in the third degree is whoever without intent to affect the death of any person causes the death of another by perpetrating an act eminently dangerous to others, plural, right? Not another person, to others, and evincing a depraved mind without regard for human life. So it says others, plural. It can be interpreted to mean just in general another person,
right, another or others.
So, but I think that's where in the past it had been construed to be. It had to be multiple, but recent court rulings have changed that to also include singular. So, anyway, I thought that was a huge point that I've been hearing on the right as a talking point that I thought should be cleared up. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, and I mean, I actually trust the judgment of that particular judge that they have in that case, right? Because I watched a lot of him while he was in when they were doing the jury selection, and I really like his character. I like how calm he is, how straight up he is. I don't know how to describe it. I could just you know how you can just tell.
The one on the Chauvin case.
What's that?
The one on the Chauvin case? Yes,
the judge. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So I don't know. I have faith in whatever comes from him. And there's another thing too. There's another talking point on the right, and this one actually came from Crowder. I'm curious what you think about this. And he was speaking more to the culture war behind it. So he's not talking about whether Derek Chauvin's guilty or not. He's talking about the Black Lives Matter versus I don't know, all lives matter or whatever the culture war narrative that surrounds it. And he made a point, right? And this is a it's a point that'll get me shot in polite society, but let's see. Okay, so his contention was, and I find myself agreeing with the idea that between Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, it's not even questionable as to which one was more of a threat to black people. And it's George Floyd, right? And that's true if you look. It's not like I'm not talking about this incident on its own, right? You have to look at his criminal record, and his criminal record is, the worst of which is strong-armed robbery, where he pushed his way into a pregnant woman's house and put a pistol against her belly. And then, after that, it's just serial drug use, counterfeiting bills, robbery. And then, on the flip side, you have Derek Chauvin, who's a police officer. He has a couple complaints against him, but he's basically serving the community, right? And you don't know, right? So maybe he is a pretty bad apple and he's escaped a bunch of reports. But the point is like between the two of them, or let's say police in America versus George Floyd, which one is worse for society? It's like we do this thing where it's like, black people are just not responsible for their actions, which I have some articles to pull up later, and then the cops are responsible. They're overly responsible for all of their actions, which is somewhat appropriate, but you get my point. What do you think of that? I'll stop rambling. And that's a dangerous one, I know, but
yeah, I mean, I don't really agree. I don't really agree.
Why not?
I don't think you should look at a situation where somebody. So let me take a step back. I think Derek Chauvin made a massive mistake. Okay.
I agree.
Will he be convicted of murder for it? Did he do enough that the law is going to be able to convict him? I don't know. But I think he fucked up royally, right? He had plenty of opportunities to treat him with more respect, to give him, to when he stops moving, stop respect. It was 3 minutes where he wasn't where he was not unresponsive.
Something
and he didn't. Yep. There was people yelling at him saying, he's passed out. His own officer was like, "Hey, shouldn't we roll him over?" several times, and he kept saying no.
Yep, twice. He
fucked up really bad. Okay, so when I say this, I think he did, right, but I don't think you should look at that situation and say, yeah, he fucked up really bad, but it's okay because he fucked up really bad on somebody that fucked up worse.
Nope. Step time out. That's not my point. Dip. That's not the point I was making at all. Not even close. Not even a little bit.
Well, I'm talking about your initial statement of which one is more dangerous to the public.
Yes, but you need to take that in the context of my preface. My preface was I'm not talking about this incident. I'm talking about the general culture war that surrounds this.
Right. So I'm getting to that. Okay. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, so sorry if it seemed that way.
Right. I just want to make crystal clear. I am not saying that George Floyd should have been killed, or it was okay or better for him to have been killed because he's like scum of the earth or something like that. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't hear, and that's not what I thought you said, and I wasn't.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up like that, because there's a lot of people who were hearing that. And that's not what I meant.
And I just want to say that because even the statement of who was worse doesn't matter to me. Right. To me, really what matters is each person should be held accountable for their actions, regardless of the overarching situation.
We still agree.
And so to that point, then you said something along the lines of, cops being held to a higher standard. I think that we're getting there. It's starting to happen. But they should be, honestly. And the reason I say that isn't because I don't want cops or that I think that they need to be limited in power or anything like that. It's because they're given an immense amount of power. Mm-hmm. And
I know. And you've had some personal run-ins with bad cops.
Yeah. And I mean, and from my personal run-ins didn't affect my life very deeply, right?
Right.
I was lucky enough that the situations that happened weren't serious, or and were more of an ego hit or a check back to reality of who is actually in charge kind of thing, right? But it's painful enough that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the point really is, like, if a cop walked up and arrested you just out of the blue, you're walking down the sidewalk, a cop walks up, arrests you, and charges you with disorderly conduct and says you were screaming or that you had whipped out your privates and he saw it or whatever, you're going to be fucking convicted. That's the end of it. It's your word against his.
Yep.
You're done. You're convicted, right?
Can you file a complaint if you're still convicted? If you're convicted of the thing that the cop said you were doing?
Yeah, you can file a complaint, but I mean, it's not going to do anything. But that's the point, though, is like it's literally their word, and so now they're starting to have the cameras, which help, and that's why I really think every officer should have to have these things on.
I agree.
24/7.
Hey,
we have the technology. We have the technology that they can record an entire day's worth of stuff, 24 hours worth, without having to turn it off. There's no reason that it should be, I'm going to turn this thing on and off. When you're on duty, you're a cop, you're working for the public, that shit should be recorded.
You want to hear a funny stat about that? And this is from memory. I'm pretty sure it's accurate, though. There was a precinct where they put body cams in, and complaints against cops decreased by 91% because now they had body cam footage and people knew they couldn't bullshit.
Awesome. I'm glad that's happening too, because false claims against the cops is bullshit too.
Yes.
Right?
So let me try my point one more time. So I just like maybe there was some critical background
I'm going to be honest, I probably missed like 30 seconds of what you were saying as well, because I was pulling up the Shapiro clip.
Gotcha. Okay, so let me rephrase one more time. So first of all, I'm talking the broader cultural narrative, right? I'm talking about the culture war. I'm not talking about how this incident should be litigated, whether it was a good or bad thing that George Floyd died or who, like whatever. Yeah. I'm talking the culture war, right? And then the only reason why conservative commentators like Steven Crowder and whoever else I listen to bring this up is because the left insists on lionizing George Floyd as a sort of like a community mentor, right? You'll hear that a lot. You say George Floyd was turning his life around. He was a mentor to young men. He was an integral part of the community.
I mean, right? if turning your life around includes still this is probably a bad assumption. My assumption is that he was in on the counterfeit bills. They weren't something he just got somewhere. But I don't know that to be true.
So we do know that he knew it was counterfeit. So, so for example, the footage of the gas station that he tried to pass it off in, that footage is available now, and it shows that the cashier told him and asked him twice, like, "Hey, man, this is counterfeit. Can you give me the cigarettes back? Like, either give me some money for the cigarettes or give me the cigarettes back." And twice George Floyd refused. Right, and then he went out to the card.
But that doesn't prove he knew ahead of time that it was counterfeit.
No. That's not what I'm saying. But he definitely knew he was doing
the point I was making, because I was going to say if he was dealing in counterfeit bills and that's turning your life around, like, that's pretty rough, right? Well, it could be he just got the damn bill somewhere, right? Like, you go to the store, you get change.
Well, that's why I mentioned the clerk. Like, if it was an honest mistake, he would have been like, "I'm sorry, here's the cigarettes back. I didn't know."
Maybe not. Maybe you'd be like, "Dude, somebody gave me this damn 20. Now you should take it. Like, it's $20 to me. Like, you deal with it."
I mean, would you hold yourself to that standard?
I don't know how I'd react, but I definitely would say something along those lines, like, dude, I don't know that if it's counterfeit or not. All I can tell you is I got that from Kroger's or wherever the hell, right? And it was given to me as money, so, like, I think it's real. I'd have made some sort of argument like that. But I'm not the typical person.
Yeah. Look. So the only point.
So what's your question though? What was your overall thing? We kind of
like the point is that the left insists on, like, every time this happens, right? Whoever gets killed, whether it's like whoever, like Trayvon Martin, like all you heard that was that his mother's testimony about what a good boy he was, and then comes out witness testimony. He's like on top of George Zimmerman, bashing his skull into the ground. Like every single person that Black Lives Matter sort of flares up around. Not every single. Hold on, let me pull that way back because that's not true. Right? Black Lives Matter has lionized a few people who deserved lionizing before. Like, try not to be hyperbolic and blanket statements, but very often the people end up like they're just like and I stumble over this point a lot. I'm trying to make this point as clear as possible. A lot of the people do not deserve to be lionized, and it matters in just because they insist on lionizing them, right? So the points that the left is trying to gain by lionizing the people are oftentimes unearned, I suppose. That's probably the most neutral way at that point.
So I guess I agree with you on a lot of points, but I want to play a little bit
halo around his head, and he was in the middle of passing off a counterfeit bill that he knew was counterfeit. Then he went into the car and he popped 2 more pills, right? And then he passed out in the driver's seat, and that's likely why he died, is because when he got woken up by a baton tap on the window from a drug-induced stupor, he went into overdrive mode, and he died from cardiopulmonary, whatever the freak it was.
I generally agree that we shouldn't be making something out to be what it isn't, regardless of the situation, making someone look better or worse than they were, twisting facts. I'm a very much factual type of guy. So I'm in agreement there. But a little bit of devil's advocate-y, and I kind of feel this way too a little bit, is it's in our nature to do that.
For sure.
I mean, have you ever been to someone's obituary? Have you ever been to someone's obituary where they're like,
yeah, exactly.
Guy was a piece of shit.
Right?
This guy here. Right, like they don't. He was the nicest guy. He was funny. He was like it's always positive things,
whatever it is.
So I think there's.
No, you're right. You're right.
Some of that maybe, but yeah,
But his family can do that, but like, they built a movement around it. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Look. So like those who say it should have no bearing on the case, like you're 100% absolutely correct. You're right.
Yeah. I got to switch my audio input here, so tell me if you can still hear me now. Can you still hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, so pull up one more thing because I gotta change one more setting.
I got a kind of a quick one here.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a graph about people who. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do this. I like this. So. Beliefs about who's responsible for the coronavirus by political affiliation. Right. This to me is interesting. It's kind of fun here. So, okay. So, I thought there was some interesting stuff in here. Right. So let's look at this. So this far left bar right here. This is the big one. Right. So. People who believe that China in general, right? This right here would be the amount of Republicans that believe China in general is responsible. This is Democrats, right? So that's still a fair chunk. I think that might be about 40%.
Yeah.
To the Republicans, like just about 55%. And then independents. So independents look like maybe the largest group of people who just think China in general is responsible for the coronavirus, but I mean, the rest of these are kind of a hoot. Like, maybe not a hoot, but some of these are. There's, like, if you look over here, there's a bunch of Democrats. There's a few Democrats that believe Republicans are responsible for the coronavirus, and then there's a few Republicans who believe the Democrats are responsible for
It's 5G towers on there anyway? Where I can't read it.
I think that's on other. People think the CDC, but that's also a small sliver. Trump, right? People think Trump is responsible. That's all Democrats in that one. Viral warfare is Democrats and independents. Let's see.
So, I mean, let me ask you this before.
Yeah.
Is there what's the second to last one?
Which one? Right here?
Yeah, what's that one?
Don't know. And then this is other.
Is there anyone on there that's like, it just happened? Is there anything that's like that?
Maybe
I'm imagining like
That's got to be in.
I make this poll, and these are the options, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, well, I mean, the best option on this list is China, and I check it, right? Like, if all the other options are ridiculous,
something kind of similar to that would be animal/wet market, right? It's like it is the practice that gave rise to it, but it's not like a person is necessarily responsible for that. That's the closest I can think of to your option.
Yeah,
and that one is mostly Democrats again.
I mean, I don't know where I'd fall. I feel like it just happened, but I also feel like China has a big responsibility because they played it down. And the more and more I've been reading about it and learning is that they knew about it way earlier than we thought, and they were
right. And they likely let flights go on purpose. So that they weren't the only ones.
The Chinese New Year was happening, and they didn't want to affect it or something. So, I mean, it's in some ways, I actually think, China probably was a fair amount responsible. Not because I think they purposefully released it or it necessarily came from a lab or anything like that. I just think their politics and what they did ended up allowing it to spread, but it could have happened anyway. I mean,
let me show you this too. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's like, what do you mean by responsible? Responsible for the spread, responsible for the start, responsible for the world getting it's kind of it depends on what you mean by the question. But I love this right here. First of all, because I feel like the researchers were trying to dunk on racists and they didn't really manage to. So this is a Google Trends sort of line graph right here, whatever it is, trend graph or whatever, trends searchable database. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 terms that they were looking for for people Googling a whole bunch. And I feel like
for our audio viewers, it's China virus, Kung flu, and then 2 other terms that are derogatory slang words for Asians.
Right. Couple things to note. China virus, they used dashes instead of the IN in China because they consider this a slur or something, right? Because for the CH ending with K word for racial slur for Asians, they blotted out the 2 middle words or letters, and then they did the same thing with G.K. And then they just did it to China like that's a slur. So, okay, so China virus, CH ending in K, Kung flu, and G ending in K. And they did search trends. And the hilarious thing is, like, again, I feel like they thought they were dunking on the racists when they did this. The hilarious thing is that the 2 actual slurs are just no change whatsoever. They're just low level. Like, the same amount of people were searching them year over year. There's no...
Means everyone that was racist is still racist.
Right, yeah. It's just like all the dumbasses who were racist in 2016 are still racist. Go figure. And they're all roughly searching for Chinese slurs, at the same pace. The 2 things that actually spiked on this graph are China virus and Kung flu because it was in the freaking news. Like,
what's the scale here? Is this thousands of searches?
Number of searches for terms.
I mean, it can't be that only 100 people searched for China
they don't
virus.
Have I don't know, million. Would you think?
I would imagine thousands. I mean, it's not. You think 100 million searched for China virus?
That's not a lot.
100 million? A third of the population?
That was at the peak. Like, think about maybe the day after Donald Trump gave a speech and said China virus for the first time.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't even know if does a third of the population use Google? I guess probably.
Unless it's percent somehow, and then that one just barely nicks 100.
No, because it goes to 120. My guess is it's thousands, and it's 100,000.
That's it? You really think?
But it still seems too low. But 100 million seems too high.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be in tens of thousands, so it could be 1 million.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This was an interesting.
Anyway.
Oh yeah. By the way, one more thing. This is the trend for Asian hate crime incidents. And also note it was actually going back up since 2016, like long before Donald Trump said China virus. So that's it for me. That's all for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, take that, liberals. Only Chris was here to cry.
Oh man,
Sorry,
I mean, I don't like hate crimes against anybody.
No, of course not.
And I know you don't either. So I'm trying to throw that out. Like yeah.
I think it's so cavalier because again, we're just like a very unserious people. All right, let's do it.
This might echo because I don't know if I got it set up perfectly right. I didn't set everything up to do YouTube videos, but let me know if you can hear it. And
it's on the program before. There's third degree. Third degree murder does not really apply in this case. Third degree murder is a case where you are threatening murder to, it's what's called depraved heart murder, where you don't care that somebody is going to die, but it has to be directed at a random victim. Okay, it can't be that you targeted X and you didn't care about X and that person died. It has to be like you take a brick and you throw it off of the top of a freeway intersection, off of an overhang, and then you hit a car, right? That would be depraved heart murder. You don't care who it is you kill. You're targeting just kind of generally humanity at large. You shoot a gun into a crowd, right? That would be depraved heart murder. So third degree really does not apply.
So, like, I can see where you can think of it a different way in that it doesn't have to be a group or whatever, but generally that's kind of what he's saying is your action isn't targeted at anyone specifically, right? And in this case, his actions were targeted.
It's required to be a group.
Yeah, but I think he reiterates it a little bit later.
He does. Maybe look,
but regardless, it makes it seem like it has to. I think the contention is that it doesn't apply because even if you look at it the other way, it has to be targeted at a random person, and in this case, it wasn't random, right? But this is a weird one where he wasn't, because he's a cop. Physically assaulting somebody like that is legal, right? So normally you could get into a murder charge because you're committing a crime, and in the act of committing that crime killed somebody, therefore it's murder.
Unless it's a citizen's arrest, which gets fuzzy.
Yeah. So it's, I guess, to go back to summarize what we were saying before, though, it is not a slam dunk case. It's going to be a very difficult conviction if the jury goes based on law, right? Like, not that he shouldn't be, but the law, if they go based on law, it's going to be a difficult conviction.
Yeah.
So. Yep,
we'll see. I'm for those who think I just go with my bias. That's mostly true, but I'm actually not sure how this case is going to. I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. And it's not like I'm saying like, oh, the jury is woke or something like that. I think they probably did a pretty good job with the jury. I think it's probably going to be a difficult case. I've heard good commentary pushing it either way. All I know is just that it is going to be hard. It's very unlikely that this is going to turn out the way that the activists think. And that's a powder keg, man. It is a powder keg.
Yeah. So do you think, this is a touchy question, but do you think it's better for the country, regardless of what the law says, for him to just be convicted or not? Like one of those making a statement type things.
I think, no, I don't. I think the truth needs to be followed in every case. So it may be. So I would concede that it's going to be better for property in Minneapolis and probably in big cities around the country. It will be better in the short term for property value and insurance rates if he gets convicted. I think in the long term, the culture war matters, and not just the culture war, like whatever you call it, quote unquote, the soul of the nation, or how criminal justice at large, policing cases, like all of it. If this sets a poor precedent and it puts us further down the wrong path, if it is the wrong path, then I don't think that's better for us in the long run.
Yeah. I'm torn. I think, on one hand, I think in the long run, it's going to be better for the country, only because it's going, like you said, if he doesn't get convicted, it's going to be unbelievable riots and everything, I think. But the second thing is, on the other side, why I think it might not be is like going against what our laws are for something like this, like saying, hey, you know what? It's okay if we make an example of one person and, put him in jail for whatever number of years, or like potentially have him lose his life in jail since he's a cop, for something that our law shouldn't have convicted him for. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but if that's what it turns out to be,
right,
that's also really scary. Like,
yeah. Well, that's sacrificing the individual to the group, right?
Yeah.
That is fundamentally, and people really don't understand this, but that is fundamentally opposed to the Western idea of individualism. Like that is what sets the West apart, is our individualism. That is it. It's our system of law that respects your rights as an individual under the law, regardless of whatever externalities there are, right? And if we start going back on that, like we're sliding down the slope that we shouldn't have even put our foot in, our feet on.
Yeah. Breaking news: Ted Cruz puts his foot in his mouth a little bit. I don't know. So this meme says,
I'm going to let you say your bit. Go ahead.
It's not really a bit. It speaks for itself. But for those just listening, the meme says, Ted Cruz says owning a gun should be as hassle-free as owning a car, which, as I recall, requires a license and registration. And I would add to this required training.
Training, of course. I wouldn't call that training.
I don't know about you. I had to get a practice permit and have my parents ride around with me and teach me how to drive. I don't have
too much of a problem with that. But so I was kind of confused when I saw this, right? The liberals kind of take this as like, they put it in all caps, and this guy's like, like squeezy jibs. He's like, this is like, I'm owning the conservatives. Like, I know very few conservatives. Like, I'm trying to phrase this correctly, because they're like, a lot of conservatives are in favor of constitutional carry, which is carrying weapons without a permit. I know very few conservatives that are not okay with this. Like, we did the statistics on this. Most people are absolutely fine with the system that we have, or maybe a little bit more. And that includes conservatives. Like, we're okay with register, like getting a license, getting a gun license. Like, we're okay with all the background checks and all the stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah, no, that's true. And generally the population is, but
right, including Ted Cruz,
but the Republican Congress is not. And every time these come up, they just get completely squashed.
Oh yeah, not by the federal, because they're in the federal government. We're okay with it being state regulated. And all of those things are regulated by the individual states. So that's more of a federal versus states issue rather than. So I guess I could see the confusion, right? People who think that the federal government should step in and do this. And I think there is also a valid jab at conservatives when you're saying we should be registering these firearms, right? I think that was part of it. Conservatives are definitely opposed to that, right? There's going to be no gun registry. Like, make me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pull up CNN here. CNN likes
you're not allowed to look. Don't you? You're not a card carrier. You can't look at CNN.
Yeah. So you know what I kind of generally wanted to talk about voter suppression versus I suppose voter suppression. So
is this in relation to the Georgia laws?
The Georgia laws, right? So what did you hear about the Georgia laws, just off the top of your head? What have you heard?
It's really bad. Really bad.
What did you hear, though, specifically?
I heard minorities aren't going to be able to vote anymore.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I heard.
They must. I think Article 1, Section 1 of the new law says is that if your skin, like they have like a visual picture, right, and they have like white faded to black, like, and they said if your skin lines up below this line, like your vote
like
only
a roller
counts
coaster.
Half.
You can only ride this ride if you're
right. Yeah. Exactly.
No,
it's standard bullshit with this, right? And this is I'll go to Bill Maher's point on this. Like, we're a silly people, right? So let me just preface this with the meta point, like the biggest point about this. Whenever you hear us, me, Chris and Tim, going back and forth about voter suppression and whether it is or is not, whether it's racist or it's not, just remember, on top of this, all that it matters is that Democrats are trying to get more people to vote, because when they do, they are favored. And Republicans are trying to restrict voting down to a certain set of people, because when they restrict it down, like regardless of race, just if less people vote, Republicans come on top. So just remember
Isn't
that.
Weird.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, you can think about that any way you want. It certainly bothers me, but at the same time, like when you're trying to expand voting rights to 16-year-olds, I just like what are you talking about? I didn't know anything when I was 18. I was a dumbass when I was 20. Like now you're trying to give the vote to 16-year-olds?
How old are you now?
I'm a million.
You're a million? Well, you were still dumbass when you were a million.
Oh, maybe.
I mean, I think you should be able to have the discussion at least of saying, hey, do we want to expand voting rights down to 16 or whatever? There's nothing wrong with that discussion.
Why would you do that? So
why would you not? So just because something is the way it is doesn't mean it's the optimal position to be in.
How does it make it better having 16-year-olds vote? Better. You getting more informed people out to the polls, are you?
Is that the goal? Only informed people can vote?
I'm looking for...
Because I'm pretty sure half of your entire party wouldn't be allowed to vote anymore.
Okay, so I'm not really talking about political strategy here. I'm just talking like my personal philosophy about voting. I don't think you should go out and vote. Like you, whoever you are that's listening, I don't think you should go out and vote. I think you should educate yourself and then go out and vote. Whatever that means, whatever you vote left or right, I think you should be voting if you have a strong opinion on something that you've done research on. I don't think more people voting in general, like I know it sounds self-serving because I just said that less people voting serves Republicans. That's not what I'm talking about. I think informed people voting is probably the best way. And if you're disagreeing with that statement, I feel like you're probably politically motivated about something.
Hey, Daniel, who nailed what? Sometimes the chat's a little delayed, so you don't catch exactly when you guys say stuff like that, which one you're talking to.
When you're complimenting somebody.
And if it's not me, then don't answer. If you're complimenting
if it's me, be
then
specific.
don't. Yeah, then leave it there.
So
I generally agree. Like we've talked before, in my ideal world, right, which we've talked never could ever work and wouldn't exist and whatever. I think you should have to pass a fucking test to vote. Like you should have to be like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Or what does this politician think that? No, not like
racist.
It isn't racist.
Yes,
It's ridiculous. No, it's not.
Let me explain to you how it's racist, right? Because if you put a test, there's going to be a literacy bar, right? You're going to need to be able to read and write. Okay.
No, I'm fine with someone just sitting there and asking you questions.
Disproportionately affects minorities who have poor education because of the systemic racism.
Well, okay. First off, just because we've had this discussion, but I'm gonna throw it out there and get myself canceled. Just because something disproportionately affects one group or another doesn't mean that it's racist against them necessarily. Okay, it just means that it isn't. There's not an even distribution of whatever it is that thing that's disproportionately affecting people is out there, right? So let me ask: if the majority of people, that receive welfare or unemployment or whatever are of a specific race, is that particular policy then racist against the other races that don't get that stuff as much? No, it's not.
No, and I have a consistent standard, Timothy, right? Because
I know you're playing at me on this, right? I know you don't actually believe these things, so I'm giving it to you to have this discussion, but so anyway, in my perfect world, I would like people to be educated to vote. And in the past, maybe 2 or 3 elections ago, I didn't vote because I made that exact statement. I was like, look, I don't know who anybody is. I don't know what they stand for. Like my vote, is I'm just writing a name. I'm literally throwing a dart at a board. Like it's not a valuable thing. So yeah, in my perfect world, the only thing I want people to do is say, hey, this is like, I would rather the vote, rather than going out and saying this is the candidate that I want. I wish you could literally go out and take like a political test that says, how do you feel about this policy, this policy, and whatever one it aligned with, that was your fucking vote. Like that'd be cool.
Tough. That'd be tough to come up with because you'd have to come up with those questions in a bipartisan way. And then
again, perfect world, right? Like not really something that could work. But so
Well, in a perfect world, you don't need politicians, So it's like it's
Hey,
self-defeating.
Stop
using
kicking
logic.
those guys out of my perfect world. What are politicians going to do then, right? In my perfect
No.
world,
There's
they
no
don't have a
need
job.
to lead people in a perfect world, right? Everybody gets up and polishes their picket fences and waves to their
So
neighbors.
you're saying all those people out there that aren't alpha personalities don't belong in a perfect world?
No, I'm just saying
all the followers out there.
There's no need for the profession of politics in a perfect world.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
So
anyways, I mean, I have a couple articles pulled up on this, but it's just it's all trash. I remember reading into this. Voter suppression has just been like every article on Yahoo News that I've been scrolling the past week. It's talking about the big one is that this new Georgia law is not allowing people to give food or water to people in line to vote.
What is that about?
It's that it's saying that they can't do drop boxes anymore. So it's like again, maybe people don't believe me, but journalists these days are activists. They have a political point of view that they're trying to get across, and it's like no holds barred. Like there's no such thing as journalistic ethics.
Okay, but let's talk about the other side of it. Like if those things are true, if they're removing drop boxes, if they're saying, hey, you can't give food or water to people in line.
Yep.
Like, are there good reasons for that? Or is it just to fucking do it? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
so number one, what all of these articles that I've read have been doing, and it's like all of them. This issue has been particularly egregious, and I'm not sure why. But because it's because they live in a Twitterverse. Like all of them are on the same Twitter back channels, and they all just write the same articles at the same time because they don't actually do any journalism anymore. But aside from that, so let's talk about the food and water thing. Let's do that real quick.
Okay,
right?
Let's do that one and then drop boxes.
Yes. So all of these articles are saying that it's now this Georgia voter suppression law is making it illegal to hand food and water to people in line, right? And well, damn, that's true. That is actually true. But what does the law actually do? What the law does is prevents people from giving gifts to people in line, and that includes food or water. And so what the Democrats did, right? Because what the whole goal of this was to avoid people approaching people in voting lines and saying, "Hey, here's some water. Here's why you should vote for my candidate." You're like, "You should definitely vote for my candidate. You want some water?" Right? So the law is there to stop bribery in lines, right? And this includes gifts. This includes everything. And what all of these journalism activists decided to do at the same time was put out articles saying that it's illegal to give food and water to people in line. Well, yes, but also like iPads and like anything else that's valuable that they might want at the moment, to stop with to cut down on bribery, right? So
yeah. So let me ask you first. Do you think bribery is an issue in this? Does it?
I have no idea.
Like,
I don't know.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
In the last election, if I was standing there and I said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a brand new car if you vote for Biden.
Yeah.
Here are the keys." Right?
Yep.
You're going to be like, "Yeah, okay." You're going to take those keys and you're going to go in there and you're still going to vote for fucking Trump. Right? Like, what does bribery do? There's no way they can make you do something, know if you did it. Right? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, then. So
the only time it works is if like you're Republican and you're like, look, there are no other Republicans out here because they're a bunch of selfish assholes. But these Democrats are nice guys and they're giving me some stuff. Yeah, maybe I want to be a Democrat now, right? Like, to me, that's not bribery.
Look, man. There's another way.
Or the other way around. The Democrats are assholes and the Republicans.
Right. There's another way to think about this. If it's not a problem, I mean, it's not a bad law, right? Avoiding bribery in the line is not a bad law. So what's the problem with it?
No, I think passing more laws, if you're a Republican, you should probably agree with this. Passing more laws that don't necessarily need to be there isn't the right approach. Like, if there's a good reason to have a law, great.
That's fair enough. But would you call it racist?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So point made. All right. So let's talk about the drop boxes as well. So, so the left is characterizing this as the right is removing all of these drop boxes that are so necessary for getting the vote out. And it turns out that these drop boxes didn't exist before the pandemic. These drop boxes were just put in for the pandemic. They're out there 24/7 and they're unmonitored. Now, I don't think there's been any evidence of them being tampered with, but again, this is the Georgia GOP, so they're trying to make a point about this.
So are
So
they
there's
removing
drop
them?
boxes, but they're only
Are
available
they removing
in
them
polling
temporarily?
stations during. Go ahead.
Are they removing them temporarily to put them back out during elections that
No.
they're going to be required on, or are they like just removing them
No,
altogether?
it was a
like
pandemic measure that they're removing. Right,
Okay.
Those drop boxes were put out there for the pandemic, so that people didn't have to crowd into the polling stations. Now they're not removing them totally either, right? So before the pandemic, these didn't exist at all. Now they're just putting them in the polling stations accessible during polling hours, so you don't have to go in and vote. You can bring your ballot in and drop them in the box, right? Which is better than it was before. It makes voting is still easier than it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
I'm not too worried about that one. I think
right. Well, no, Tim. That's voting.
I think those don't matter. Like you can, if you have a absentee ballot, you can mail it in. And if you can't mail it in because you got it too late or didn't mail it soon enough, then now you just have to drive down to the fucking ballot place and throw it in the box there. Like,
nope. But
I think that's fine. I think that's
I've read several articles today that said that this is Jim Crow on steroids. Joe Biden said that this was not even Jim Crow. This was Jim Eagle, which I didn't get for a while. I'm actually not proud of that. I didn't understand that eagle is a bigger bird, so he's trying to say that it's worse. I didn't get that for a while, actually.
I mean, are they making the argument that minorities have less transit access or something, and so it's harder for them to?
100%. They always make that argument, though. So
yeah. I mean, the articles I read on this, the biggest things they talked about were the reduction in absentee ballot. A lot of things in relation to absentee ballot, but generally targeting the reduction in absentee ballots and also reducing the time before the election that you can request an absentee ballot, and then increasing the amount of time before the election that the ballot has to be in by. I think it is.
Okay, so here's the thing with that, right? So again, right, so all of the pandemic measures they're mostly getting rid of, but they're not even completely getting rid of the pandemic measures, right? So basically this bill is moving Georgia back towards with the addition of a couple extra ones like the bribery and the line thing. It's moving Georgia back to where it was before the pandemic, right? It's getting rid of the pandemic measures. And it's like the window for early voting is a week now, right? They shrank it to a week from, I forget what it was during the pandemic, like 2 weeks. And it's like, yeah, they shrunk it to that. And you're trying to say that's racist, but in like New Jersey, which is as blue as it gets, it's less than that. Like, and you're not screaming about New Jersey. It's just like, it's politics. We're so stupid and silly, right? And a lot of these things, like you're saying, like, I'm willing to concede, even though I kind of generally agree with some of these laws, I'm willing to concede that the GOP is putting forward a bunch of unnecessary things, like removing those ballot boxes without proving that they were tampered with or can be tampered with is just political showmanship. I
guess, yeah. I mean, you're spending, if you want to take the GOP view on other things, you're spending tax dollars to get these things removed, right? They should at this point pose should at this point pose an issue if you're going to make an effort to remove them. Now the issue could be, hey, we have to pay somebody to walk around and check all these things however often during elections, and that's more expensive. Like, I get that there could be legit reasons to do it.
Right, but these issues are so minute that it's just, to me, it's just blindingly obvious that it's the Republicans trying to restrict the vote because Republicans do better with restricted votes, and the Democrats crying racism because they know that restricting the vote is going to hurt them. That's it.
Yeah,
that's really it.
I think I think there's
merit to all of these, but
I still think there's a little. I'm on the side of it should be, if we can make it easier for people to vote without putting at risk the validity of the election, right? Without increasing or I shouldn't say dramatically, but significantly is probably a good word to use. Increasing the potential for fraud or other things. If we can make it easier for everybody to vote without causing more issues, we should. Not because I want the election to turn out one way or the other, but because I feel like if it's our right to vote, it shouldn't be something that we have to work extremely hard at to do either. With that said, that kind of counters with my other side, which is in my head, I want people that are voting to vote based on information, right? Based on appropriate information, not like slander ads that you see online, or you're like, hey, that guy's last name's Bob,
like nothing
Bobinson, and my best friend's last name's Bobinson. I'm voting for Bobinson. Like whatever. Like I don't know. Like I wish people voted for legit reasons, but I generally think making it more difficult to vote isn't good.
They're complaining about purging the voter rolls. Like what would we? You think they're just gonna I found a black person on the voter roll, I'm gonna kick him off? Like I don't even understand why you're complaining.
If your name is Jamal, you have to re-register.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's just like Control F on the Excel sheet. It's like JAMAL. Okay, delete. Okay, all right.
That was racist joke. That was a racist joke. That was not appropriate. I shouldn't have said that.
We're destined to get demonetized as well.
Yeah.
We probably already have been.
The other one, I didn't like that. I didn't like that they were shortening up some of those times and stuff. And I get your point. Like, hey, we're going back to pre-pandemic, and I think that some backstep makes sense. But I also think that historically we've seen absentee ballot voting increasing, early voting increasing, technology making this type of stuff. Like, why should I even have to leave my house at this point? Like my bank feels like it's secure enough for me to log in online and access all of my money.
Yeah.
So there is ways to at least be secure enough to say, hey, this is the right person logging in. Like, how can we not vote online at some point?
But there's almost no way to there's no way to do that, right? You would have to issue each like from a cybersecurity standpoint, as a person who works in cybersecurity, it would be very hard to do that. Like, you would have to issue each citizen a unique token and then make sure the token wasn't stolen, and then do like a whole bunch of two-step verification things. Like, it would be a burden on common people to be able to securely vote from your home. There's no way to.
Could you imagine the reduction in expense and difficulty once that system's in place? You're not.
That's an exponential increase in difficulty.
Are you kidding me?
People are expensive, bro. You just got to pay somebody like $10.
The issue is that it's state run, because now each state's going to have its own system that they. I'm not. Well, no. Okay, so let me make clear on that. I'm fine with the election being state driven. Mm-hmm. The issue with it being expensive is that it's state run. Let me say it that way, because to finish that point, each state's going to end up developing and using their own system, which would cost a lot. Whereas if you developed one and every state got to use it, that would be a lot less expensive for each state. But I mean, if you think on for every election that happens, they have to have people volunteering and manning all of these stations, hand counting, hand opening, mailing out all these paper documents, doing all that shit. Whereas if it was just, hey, you log into this website, go to your library and log in. Like, there is no more paper ballots. Everything's now digital. Everything's tracked. Everything's available that way. That makes it a ton easier.
I'm telling you,
it's not technically impossible or even that difficult, or every goddamn website and bank and other institution wouldn't have the ability to log in. Everything you do online is your own identity. You're logging in. You create an account. I can log into my Social Security site. I can log into the IRS if I need to. Like, all of this shit. I can file my taxes online. They can file my taxes for me digitally. I can submit my taxes digitally, but I can't vote digitally because that's too hard. Come on, man.
Listen, everybody. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Tim wants you online so he can hack you. All right, I
want to steal your vote.
I think it's your turn. I did my little litany.
Yeah, let's talk about the Biden infrastructure plan.
I thought you wanted to talk about Biden's dogs biting everybody.
No, but I heard one of his dogs pooped in the hallway in the White House.
What? Yo, his
Yeah,
dog
look
is,
it up.
Off the chain, man. You hear what's his nuts bit somebody again? It's
I
like
didn't hear that. No.
I don't really care. It's like stupid political theater, but it's like, what's wrong with your dog, man? Like,
Yeah.
most dogs don't really.
You know,
do that.
it was probably that that Biden actually dropped the D in the hallway and then blamed it on the dog. You know.
Yes, I would.
probably
I'm
what it was.
100% behind that conspiracy theory.
So did you hear much about? I mean, they just talked about it today, so it's fresh news. The Biden infrastructure plan. Have you heard much about it?
I'm seeing two numbers. I'm seeing 2 trillion and I'm seeing 3 trillion. I'm not sure.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's see which one I see as the big one. Oh man, I had a couple Biden things up, so I don't actually. Yeah, I actually I see 2.25 trillion on this particular article. I wasn't actually worried as much about the dollar amount. I mean, between 2 and 3 trillion, it's, what's 1 trillion between friends, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
So it was more the substance, like I was trying to find out, what are they targeting? What are they really trying to increase when it comes to our infrastructure? Because there's so many different things. It could just be roads and highways. It could be electrical systems. I think the internet is actually part of this. It could be that they're trying to go green and do, green energy. So, and I haven't been able to find a ton of info yet on that. I'm not sure that that's out yet, other than they're saying, hey, we want to, really work on infrastructure. Here's a high level of what we're trying to do. But what I did find is how they want to pay for it.
Yeah, I did see that.
And so they're planning on rolling back the corporate tax cuts that came during the Trump administration, as well as adding some additional for foreign income or something like that. What was that? Yeah. So what are your thoughts on bumping that back up?
Yeah, well, so
find it
just out of like a general principle, and I'm aware that these things are subjective, right? You can tax more and tax less, but like just as a principle, I know we say the left isn't populist, but in the fact that they're very okay with just taxing rich people. I mean, a lot of people are. The populist people on the right are okay with taxing rich people, but as kind of like a Rand Paul-ish, libertarian-ish conservative, it just galls me every time we say, oh, no, don't worry, population. We're not, don't worry, you middle class and lower class people. We're not going to touch you. We're just going to take the rich people's money because fuck them, And it's like all the middle class people, yeah, fuck them, yeah, take all their money. It's like wait, this is the analogy of you have like a group of people in a room. On one side, you've got 5 poor people, and then on the other side, you have 2 rich people. And you're like, all right, we're going to do a vote, okay? Are we going to tax the rich people more or not? And how do you think that vote is going to go, right? And it's bullshit. It's like, that's their money.
So are you saying rich people should get more votes than non-rich people?
Ooh, that's pretty based of you, Tim. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far right now, but I'm going to put that in the old consider that bucket.
No, that should not go in the consider that bucket.
Now that you brought it up, I think land-owning white males is probably the way to go.
I'm not sure if we've ever tried that. I'm not sure if we've ever tried that.
Yeah, exactly. I think as an experiment, I think it could work. It's funny. It's like, I can't make that joke because everybody who hates me already thinks I actually think that.
Yeah, well, and those that don't hate you.
Joke because fuck them, I guess.
Even us that love you sometimes think you actually believe those things. So, they're also proposing to eliminate fossil fuel tax breaks. So that's another one.
I would have to look into that more. I don't know what that means, right? Because I just don't know.
Well, I'm assuming that is the subsidies that fossil fuel companies and stuff get, like oil and gas companies and stuff. I'm assuming I'm probably making, as they say, an ass out of you and me right now. I'm probably wrong here, but
that's kind of what I assume as well. So if I could just put maybe the devil's advocate in there. I don't know enough about this to make this case conclusively, but I think the idea about subsidizing our oil and gas industry is that you make our oil and gas more competitive on the international market, and therefore our market thrives a lot more, right? So if the money that you put into the oil and gas market is made back by the fact that they're competitive on the international market and they sell a lot more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's better for the companies. I'm not sure that they get that more than that back in taxes, but it could be. I doubt that, but it could be.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah. So the numbers are. He's going to be raising the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21%. And I don't know, like, I'm torn on this a little bit because a lot of people think, yeah, businesses should pay a lot of taxes and pay more taxes and all that. And I'm generally good with businesses paying taxes on what they earn. The interesting thing with corporations, though, is most of them are, oh man, I hope my teacher doesn't see this. I think it's an S Corp. There's two types of corporations, C Corp and S Corp, I think. And one of them is what almost all corporations are because they don't have any number of shareholder limitations and other things. But anyway, they're unique in that money basically gets taxed twice in a way because the corporation's treated as an individual. Are you laughing at me? Are you laughing at me, boy?
Oh, I'm just sorry.
Producer just confirmed for me. It's an S Corp. I didn't fail the test, prof. All right. So anyway, S Corps are taxed on the income that comes in. So I'm a corporation, I'm Apple, whatever, I make this amount of revenue. As Apple, that revenue gets taxed. Then as Apple, I give some of that revenue out to my shareholders through dividends.
Yep.
Well, that money didn't do anything at that point, right? It wasn't earned income. It didn't generate any more money. It was literally revenue that came in that I got as a company that I now pass along to my shareholders. S Corps are the only corporations where that money gets taxed coming into the company and then also gets taxed going into the shareholder, right? Because as a shareholder, I get a dividend. I now have income, a dividend income that gets taxed as a capital gain.
And it gets taxed when it gets sent to the employees as income, and then it gets taxed and it gets taxed.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it gets taxed when it goes to, but that's different. That's income tax for employees, and all the other businesses have that too.
By the company, right?
All the other businesses have that too. But the difference is, like if you're a C Corp, so a C Corp has to have less like 100 shareholders, right? So it's a smaller company. A C Corp doesn't get taxed that way. And like if you think of partnerships or limited liability corporations or any other type of business you can think of, right? They don't get taxed like that. Like the business doesn't get taxed separate from the owners in that way. So on one hand, I like that companies have to pay tax on their earnings because I think if I got to pay tax on the money I make, I think everybody should have to pay tax on the money they make, right? Like that's how, but it should be done fairly across the board. It shouldn't be, I kind of am, I don't know, like somebody that's more familiar with taxes and why it should be that way, talk to me, let me know. But right now that feels wrong. But the other side of it is this. We have continually been dropping our, God, I can't talk all of a sudden, our corporate tax rates. And for those of you just listening, I have a graph up here that shows corporate tax rate, effective corporate tax rate from national accounts, and then the percentage of total revenue, IRS revenue, that is from corporate taxes over time. So starting in the 1950s, moving up until 2020 or so, and it goes from an effective corporate tax rate of about 35% in 1950s, steadily trending down with some ups and downs in there, but steadily trending down until today, where our effective corporate tax rate is somewhere in the lower 14%. So basically 14%.
Yep.
And you can see that the portion of total revenue collected by the IRS tracks very closely for the most part. Here it varies a little bit, which is interesting that shoots up. And
yeah, I mean, that might be an issue of enforcement or something.
Yeah, there could have been some interesting tax laws that happen in there, and they fixed them. But so there's a range where it deviates. But other than that 10, 20 year period, 20-year period, it tracks really closely. And so right now, it used to be 35% of the IRS's income came from corporations back in the 50s and 60s ish. It's now 14%, right? So, on the other hand of saying, like, I don't like that things get double taxed, and like, is it fair that corporations that, in my opinion, have continuously become more dominant in our culture and in our economy have been continually dropping in the percentage of taxes that they're paying to the economy? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. And it's kind of stupid too that you say they're raising it from 21 to 29, was it? And it's like
28.
28. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the effective is half that. So why are we even using this number?
Yeah. I mean, and you look at effective, you have to figure out how that's calculated, and
right. Yeah, but still at the same time, it's like, whatever number that they should be using is probably the effective anyways, right? And you can't really set an effective through a policy, so that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, and I think somewhere in here, Biden has proposed a 21% global minimum tax, and so I think that's on any income that companies make foreign. Yeah, I don't want to speculate too much, but
yeah, that's gonna hurt.
Offshore earnings. That's what it is. So it says that would be an increase from the roughly 13% that current corporations currently owe on offshore earnings. I don't know if I like that.
I don't know if that's a good thing, because I worry. Like, I work for a company that has branches in different countries, and I worry it's like we're not exploiting anything. You could say we're exploiting the Germans for their phenomenal engineering skills, sure. But it's not like we're outsourcing our cotton production to the Xinjiang province with Uyghur slave labor. Like, we're using a valuable, we own valuable assets in Germany because they're particularly skilled at this particular thing we need. And I worry, I don't know, because I'm definitely not even close to a business major. I wonder if that's just going to adversely affect companies like mine for no good reason. It's not like you're penalizing. Like, we're not outsourcing to Mexico for cheap labor. We're outsourcing to specialists for a very specific reason that has nothing to do with
because we're both PhDs in economics. Yeah, I mean, we should be able to have really good discussions on this.
And
my
philosophy and politics.
My thought is that if a corporation is expected to be paying 28% locally for business they do locally, but only have to pay 13% for business they do outside of this country, that incentivizes them to increase their external business. So I'm guessing it's to not do that, right?
Yeah, if they're bringing those two in alignment, I don't see much of a problem with that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think they're raising that to better match what is being what was raised before.
God, that sounds like economic protectionism. I'm surprised they didn't cite Trump in that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like, they're they're going back to where it was before Trump, and they're adding a little bit of a couple other things, like the getting rid of the fossil fuel tax and that stuff. Or at least that's what's proposed. We'll see what happens, but I think that's definitely going to slow the economic growth a little bit.
It will slow the economic growth. Also, it's not going to. It's probably not going to. I would guess, because this is always what happens. It's just that they.
Let me reiterate. It might not slow economic growth. It's going to slow the market growth. Your investments will suffer. The economy might actually benefit, because they were not. Those two things are not connected. They're similar. They usually correlated. They're correlated, yes, but they aren't. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. They're correlated, but they're not. They don't directly affect each other like that.
Yeah, and I forget what I was going to say now, but
gotcha. Damn it.
This happens on both. I'm just going to make one more point on that. This happens on both sides. Is what's going to happen is that the Democrats, or if this was the Republicans pushing this, they would put out, like if it was a tax cut, the Republicans would put out the most optimistic report that they have that says that this legislation that's going to cut taxes is going to generate revenue because business is going to grow this much, right? And then that's how they get it through committee. And then it turns out that tax revenue didn't actually increase that much because, who knew? It was an optimistic report. And what they're doing with this is saying, okay, so we're going to tax these, we're going to put these new taxes in, we're going to raise the corporate tax, we're going to put this extra tax on here, we're going to tax this, tax that, tax the other thing. And they just say, okay, so on paper, this raises the $2 trillion I need for this economic package. Boom, it's revenue neutral, and that thing can pass right through. And then that turns out that doesn't happen. And I can give a perfect example of how this happened here in Connecticut. So the basic level analysis of why these tax plans always fail to generate what they say they will generate is because things change because of the tax plan, right? So here in Connecticut, there was what they did was they placed a 10-cent tax on plastic bags at the grocery store, right? And they said, okay, so every year we grocery stores hand out, I don't know what it's going to be, like 10 million, let's just say 10 million grocery bags in the course of, sending people home with their groceries. And they said, okay, so we're going to add a 10-cent tax on that, right? It's super low, like whatever. It's just a 10-cent tax. All it's going to do is generate us some extra revenue here. And so what happened is that absolutely everybody stopped using plastic bags. And that number dropped to like next to nothing. And so they made nothing off of it. They were supposed to make, what's that? $10 million off of that in tax revenues, made nothing, right? And I'm just doing the math off of my hypothetical numbers. I'm sorry, that would have been $1 million if it was 10 million. But like the point is that when you put out a policy, the policy always has unintended consequences. And in this case, the unintended consequence was actually the consequence they said they intended, which was to reduce the use of plastic bags. But they were kind of not counting on that so that they could get tax revenue. It's just like they didn't get any tax revenue out of it. And everybody's using these stupid reusable bags that like take like 1,000 times more energy to create. And it's not better for the environment. So they fucked up. So anyways, that always happens. Whenever you put out a tax plan, people find ways to move their assets or do business in a different way or find loopholes, and you don't get the revenue you thought you would.
Yeah, that kind of stuff happens a lot. Gotta be careful.
Yeah, because
you'd hope that politicians would have access to resources of people that were like, yeah, hey, let's go ask some people real quick and say, hey, you 100 people, if we started taxing this, would you still pay for the bag? Wait, so you're telling me I could buy one of these bags for $1.99 and never have to pay for it again, or I have to pay 80 cents every trip? Yeah, I'm gonna buy the $1.99 bag.
Yep, and forget it at home every time, and then use paper bags.
That too.
Yeah. All right. So I've got an article. If you're ready to.
Oh gosh, do it.
So, there've been a spate. I suppose a spate is a good word. A spate of sort of what would be considered anti-trans legislation going on around the country. And what a lot of these things are, these are bills that are designed to keep, say, male to female trans people out of female sports, right? And the reason for this is generally the idea that male to female trans people had the advantages growing up of hormones, their bone density, their muscle fibers, like a whole bunch of athletic advantages that are afforded to males, making it unfair for even men who go on to transition and actually use hormones. They still have a leftover advantage over biological females. So, there's a lot of there's a lot of uproar over this. So, this is one of the most crazy culture war flashpoints, I suppose. Right? Is the transgender issue, right? Because it is so heated. Right, because, and I think, just objectively speaking about why it's so heated is this transgender individuals have a massive suicide rate, like massive. It's like 40%. And I think that's 40% attempted rate. And then even post transition, there's studies that say that it gets better after the person transitions, either male to female or female to male. The conservatives always bring up a study that says that there is no significant difference in suicidality before and after the transition. So it's a supercharged topic. If you get this wrong, right, the left, this is one of the left's big points, is that if you get this wrong, you're going to have trans people committing suicide left and right. And then they use that as, I think, unfairly a lever to push the issue. So these bills are going out across the country. Like I said, I think it was about 16. In South Dakota, Kristi Noem, she vetoed her bill because it was going to do something technically legally. It would legally harm the state in some way, but then she did an executive order that was different that effectively did the same thing, right? So that's going on. We're not really. I mean, we could talk about the trans issue in general, but there was just this article from CNN, right? So this is not an opinion article. This is actual CNN just writing. And let me read some of this to you, because this is crazy how far the culture war has gone, right? So I understand compassion to trans people. I do. And I've never not addressed a trans person the way that they wanted to. But like as a country, like the fact that the left is pushing to try to put male to female trans people into sports teams with the sex that they identify with, I find it to be just like absurd. It's incredibly absurd. Anyways, I don't know if you agree with that, but let me just read this, right? So CNN just writing, like just assuming this statement here. So let me read this.
Read it already.
Yeah. So though the two executive orders, and these are the executive orders that do the Republican thing, which is bar transgender athletes in women's sports. Not the other way around, by the way. Women can transition and play in men's sports because they don't have a biological advantage. So though the two executive orders signed by Kristi Noem do not explicitly mention transgender athletes, they reference the supposed harms of participation of, quote, males in women's athletics. And they did this. They said participation of, quote, males in women's athletics. Because it's not males, it's women. Women. An echo of the transphobic claim cited in other similar legislative initiatives that transgender women are not women, right? And so, for those who are listening, whatever side of the spectrum you are, definitionally speaking, transgender women are not women. And if you are a transgender person, I mean absolutely no disrespect, and I'll still use whatever you want, and I'll be polite to you in person. But to make this statement that transgender women are women is
Good night, Daniel.
What's that?
I said good night, Daniel. He said he's out.
Oh, good night, Daniel. I mean, I can't. I'd like.
So let me just chime in. You're I'm gonna agree with you. I've had this in some ways. I've had this discussion a lot with people, and it didn't used to be an issue back in the day. I think people never separated mental gender from genetic sex, or mental sex from genetic gender, whichever way you want to put it. Right.
Right.
It was.
Gender and sex were generally synonymous.
Yeah, and so as we've progressed, that's changed, and I'm okay with that changing. If you identify, if you feel like you are a female in a male's body, and you have to get that body as a female, or vice versa,
Yep.
I feel bad. I empathize. That's got to be absolutely difficult to deal with, going through life that way, and trying to feel
gender
like
dysphoria is real, man. That's
trying to feel like you fit into your own body, and dealing with I don't envy that, right? And so whatever you end up deciding you need to do, But the bottom line is this: your mental state is one thing. If you identify or you feel like you are male or female or whatever, if let's call that, let's call that gender for this discussion. I don't care which one's which, right?
Well, that's how we use it now, so that's fair.
So that's your gender. So it's how you feel you are, right? It's not what you were born with. It's not what your DNA says. It's not what your chromosomes say. It's what your head says. It's what your heart says. It's what you feel like. Okay, that's your gender. Regardless of how you feel about that, your sex is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Biologically, you have DNA, you have chromosomes telling your body to act a certain way, to have a certain level of hormones, to develop in a certain way, to have muscles develop in a certain way, right?
Bone
and
density,
so you
every cell in a male's body has XY chromosomes. Like
you are physically your body is physically one thing. You can change it, right? It's like you can change what your organs look like. You can change what your face looks like. You can change what your voice sounds like. You can change how your hair grows. We have a lot of things we can do
that may be to
help you look and feel the way that you actually feel in your head and your heart.
That does, in a lot of cases, help bring into helps people's gender dysphoria. Like it really does.
Yeah, and so if that's what is going to make you happier and feel better and be better in life, great, do it. But the bottom line is your body is still inside genetically one or the other. That didn't change, right? It's
correct.
And it's not, and I'm not trying to like make someone feel bad, but the bottom line is like that's true. The next piece is there are differences between men and women. Most people won't disagree with that. Where they draw the line may change. Some people may say, well, yeah, obviously there's some physical differences, but mentally they're equally capable. Other people, Jordan Peterson being one, says, hey, there's mental differences as well. Not that one's better than the other. They're just better at specific things or at other specific things. That would be
personality traits. So Jordan Peterson would say, for example, that the big 5 traits personality you have, for example, what is it? There's industriousness and orderliness, and they're 2 different faces of the same personality trait. And that women are a little bit higher in orderliness and men are a little bit higher in industriousness. But that's conscientiousness, I think. That's what that was.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest one I've heard him say, which always resonates with me, is men like things, women like people. Right? Like,
exactly.
On average. Again, not people. So, but the point, I'm not trying to dive into that deep well there.
Right. Exactly.
We'd be texting all night. The point is there are definitely physical differences between men and women.
Right. And then yes.
And so it's just you have to take that into account. And I hate the fact that somebody that's already probably suffered a lot in life trying to identify with who they are, feeling like they aren't the right person inside of the body that they are, who loves sports and wants to play sports, isn't able to. Because of these things, I feel terrible about that.
Problems with it, right? So just understand that right now, and this is not hyperbole. I didn't bring these articles up because I wasn't really going to be talking about the transgender issue itself tonight. There's a little bit more I'm going to dive into with the actual article, but world records are being shattered for women by transgender male to female, right? It's because males who grew up their entire lives and in their 30s decided to transition, and they're just like smoking women. It's like there's a MMA fighter named Fallon Fox.
I was gonna make a joke about you being attracted to smoking hot women there, but that's probably inappropriate.
Smoking hot women. I did say that.
You said they're smoking women, yeah.
Smoking.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's Anyway.
Okay, so look.
Sorry.
Look, my point is that I don't know what the solution is, right? Because you can't just be like, okay, we're going to make a transgender league because there's going to be at max like 1 or 2 in the school, right? I mean, so like, what do you do? I don't know. But the problem is that women are losing scholarships because they are losing scholarships because they're being replaced by transgender male to female, right? And then it's also not really fair. It's not a scholarship. You're still going to get your ass beat by the guy who had testosterone for the first 13 years of his life.
And it's also really not fair. I mean, if we want to talk fair, right? It's not fair to say, hey, you're still genetically a male, you need to compete in the male side, because a lot of times people that are going from male to female, they're now taking estrogen and other things that reduce some of their the characteristics that the male did, like, this is going to
Oh
sound
yeah,
terrible,
the
full
estrogen
males or natural males, or you know what I mean, like
Yep,
like I don't mean that in any derogatory
No.
way. I'm just
Yep.
have, right? And so they're not going to be able to compete at a top tier level, most likely, on the male side. And so they end up, where do they go? And it's a terrible situation, but the I feel like, I just kind of goes back to where I fall on a lot of things, which is, you're kind of responsible for yourself in this world, right? I've said it before that I'm responsible for if I get offended or not. I'm responsible if something, hurts my feelings or makes me feel uncomfortable or whatever, to some extent, right? I mean, obviously, if something does and then I tell somebody about it and they continue to do it, it's on them. But the first time, it's not, right? I shouldn't hold somebody else accountable to know what I'm thinking or feeling.
Yeah.
I'm also responsible for my decisions and things. And so, if I mean, I'm born the way I am. There's things I can and can't do because of my physical stature, because of who I am or whatever, and I just have to deal with that. And I think the unfortunate fact is that if you're born in a way where you don't feel like you belong in your body and you make this conversion, sports is going to be something you're going to struggle with, because I don't think it's right that you can just jump into the sports of, into the female side and just crush everybody that's worked extremely hard their entire life, because you had an advantage that they don't have. And I don't, and it's also not fair that you can't compete fairly in the sex that your genetic sex. But it is what it is, and I think that's an unfortunate limitation of how I honestly believe how you were born. Right, you're born with a mental state of one and a physical state of another, and they don't align,
Right.
and you're trying to find a way to make a match. And
Even the activists aren't really sure. I think a lot of them will say, like the less educated ones will say that they'll take it on faith. They'll say sort of like a platonic argument, like you are a male or a female, right, on the inside, which is a statement that's like, it doesn't actually make any sense, right? That's not a scientific statement. Like, what do you mean? Are there brain structures that are similar or different? Like, like because women's brains are actually wired a little bit differently. There's denser parts, like the hypothalamus is bigger, like whatever. There's like communication channels are different. Like women's there's areas of the brain that involve socialization. They're a little bit stronger and better networked in women than they are in men. So from what I understand, the science is a little bit murky on whether it's a from birth thing or whether there's socialization, or maybe it's a little bit of both.
I don't know. I'm. It doesn't really matter to me. You feel a certain way, you want to do certain things, live your life, be happy, do what you got to do to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always the guy that says, whatever. I don't know. I'm the guy that, like, when I'm merging into traffic, if I think me merging is going to make the car behind me slow down, I worry about that. Right? Like I feel like, not to the point where I don't merge, but like it's something that crosses my mind. I feel like you always have to be thinking about how your actions affect other people as well, in just a polite way and things. And I think this kind of falls in there a little bit too. Like, you're making this change and you have to try and understand how it affects other people too, in some ways. But
yeah,
that goes against my whole you're responsible for your own shit type of mentality a little bit. But
yeah. So that was only kind of the point. Like we haven't broached that topic before on this podcast. We kind of got into it a little bit. There's much more to it, like giving hormone blockers to children. Like, there's a lot of complicated stuff about this, and I'd love to get into that at some point. But this one is more about CNN, like going completely off the deep end, right? So This article that I'm going to read a little bit more of this and just like listen to how stacked to the left this is. Like, this is political. This is far left ideology in the CNN politics section, right? This isn't even opinion. This is just straight up CNN right here. So here goes. So I'll reread the last sentence I read, and then I'm just going to read a little bit here, right? This is crazy to be coming out of CNN. This is like,
all right, I got it. Read it.
Okay. Okay, once again, so okay, I'm not going to read that whole sentence again. Okay, so basically it's like, the legislation says that women, transgender women, are not women. Okay, the orders also reference biological sex in quotes, a disputed term that refers to the sex as listed on the students' original birth certificates. Okay, so the sex that was listed on your birth certificates is now a disputed term, according to CNN Politics. Right? This is not an opinion piece. This is not coming out of the universities from some blue-haired feminist whatever. This is coming out of CNN. Okay? And they continue. It's not possible to know a person's gender identity at birth, and for some people, the sex listed on their original birth certificate is a misleading way of describing the body they have. While sex is a category that refers broadly to physiology, a person's gender is an innate sense of identity. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So the left has recently divorced this. I hate ceding territory to them, but it is common parlance now to say that gender has nothing to do with your sex. Well, it is correlated, but it's common parlance.
Yeah, I don't want to say nothing to do, but yeah, they can be different, I guess. I mean, yeah, in the past it wasn't that way. Now it is. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with progression and changing.
I have issues,
but it has to be based in logic. Terrorists. I mean, we could have just created another word.
Correct. Right. Like, for example, this would be my trans. Is a trans woman a woman? Right. So you take that question. It's like, well, if you say that a trans woman is a woman, I'm going to need a new word for women who aren't trans. Right, because that's what I need. That's what I want. That's what I'm attracted to. Right. So you see what I'm saying? Like saying a trans woman is a woman is a self-defeating definition. Right. You can't just say, well, why do you have to say trans woman? That's a woman. No, because I'm not attracted to that. No offense. Like I'm in it for the biological XX females who can generally reproduce and generally have boobs and generally have like whatever it is. Right. I'm just going to need a new word. And so like every time they play these,
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've seen trans women that I didn't know were trans women. And I was like, yes, they're pretty hot. Right.
Very passing. Still not into it though. Like just,
well, once you find out, maybe it changes your mind, but
look, but my point is like, this has nothing to do with like me trying to oppress you and disagree with your transition and try to make you suicidal. It has nothing to do with it. It's simply that the activist left is attempting to take the word, and I'm not willing to cede that territory because number one, it's not useful, right? Number one, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Number two, it's not useful. Again, if you say trans women are women, I need a new word to mean what the old word meant, so that I can accurately convey to people the thing that I'm attracted to. It's like, oh, I'm attracted to women who get periods. Like, why the fuck would I have to say that? There's already a word for that, and through linguistic terrorism, again, the left has sort of just like grabbed that and like stolen it. And
I don't think that. I mean, if you say I'm attracted to women, I think people would generally get what you're saying.
Correct, but if you say trans women are women and you culturally change the definition of that, you need a new word now.
I'm not seeing the big issue on that one yet. I mean, I generally agree that sex and gender are different. There are a lot of issues that come along with this stuff. I mean, you talk about, which restroom should they use, right? That's one that I hear a lot from some of my my right leaning friends. And it's a tough question, but why it's not really a tough question. I mean, at first it is, but at the end of the day, who cares? Right? They're like, well, I don't want some guy in there when my little girl's in there. Well, why is that any worse than if there was some lesbian in there when your little girl was in there? Like, you don't know what people are thinking or what they're attracted to in their head. Their genetic biology doesn't, it generally has a disposition to say, okay, if you're male, you're going to be attracted to females and vice versa.
Okay,
but
right. Okay, so
it doesn't have to.
There's a lot of problems with that. Like, how far do you have to transition before you can go into the women's bathroom? Do you have to? And the thing is that you are a trans man, and the activists love to do this. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. They say that as soon as you declare that you're a trans, that you were. So if you're a trans male to female, when you declare that you were trans in your 40s, that meant that you were a female your entire life, and your life needs to be revised. All the articles written about you need to go back. It needs to say her now, right? It's not just that It's not
Okay,
just.
so let's
It's not just
hold on.
a
Let me.
linguistic thing. It's that you were a woman the whole time. Right now, my point is that they say that you don't even have to begin transitioning to be the woman. You are a woman. We just need your body to bring your body more
Hold
into
on.
alignment.
Okay,
That means that
to
you,
talk
as a
about
man
this one,
who
to
has
talk
been
about
a
this in
man for
another
40
way.
years, can walk into the bathroom. And where's
to
the
talk
dividing
about
line
this
of
another way? Let's look at it another way. Okay,
Yeah.
let's look at it from the standpoint of a woman who is transitioning into a man.
Yes.
All they're doing right now is, they worked out some or something. They have a man's haircut and they're wearing men's clothes and they walk into the women's restroom because they haven't done any other transitions. And everybody in that restroom is now uncomfortable because they think a man just fucking walked in.
Well, it comes
Right?
down to passing, doesn't it?
The point I'm trying to make is it's not about what that person thinks. That's like we try and make it about that. We're like, well, what if it's someone that's interested in my little daughter or my little son, or like we try and make it about, but that's not really what it's about. It's not, because you would be
so
fucking
the
livid if you
separation
thought
of
this
bathrooms
man
is
just
to
walked
make
in
people
there, but it's actually a woman.
comfortable.
Huh?
The separation of bathrooms is to make people comfortable.
Exactly.
I think
and
actually,
it's not
honestly,
about danger and fear, but people try and make it about that, but it's not. It's not actually about that.
I don't know. I'm actually somewhat amenable to the solution that you need to be going to whatever bathroom you pass for. So if you're passing for female, you need to go into the female's bathroom. Like you can't come into a woman's bathroom looking like a man. Whichever one causes least of a stir, basically. That's probably my best. That's probably the most what's conciliatory stance that I have. You probably
I generally agree with it,
if
but
you transitioned a week ago, you still have stubble and you're still broad-shouldered and tall and haven't taken any. Oh God, not testosterone, estrogen. Yes, thank you. If you haven't taken any estrogen, you probably shouldn't be walking into that bathroom.
yeah, I'm. The point is, though, I'm trying to make, I guess, is we make a big deal out of some things that necessarily aren't. And when you look at them from other angles and other points of views, it's like, oh yeah, okay. There's not really a great answer. Like, we want to give people freedom to dress how they like or how they feel, and all of that. But with acting out of the norm comes out of the norm issues, right? By dressing different than your sex generally dresses in public. Like if I dressed as a woman and walked into the men's restroom, they'd be like, damn, that's the ugliest woman I ever seen. But point being, like, if my wife dressed up as a man somehow and walked in there, people would freak out. Even if she's just dressing different for whatever reason. Maybe we're going to a cross-dressing party or goofing, who knows, right? Like dressing as a man for Halloween, whatever. But when you do something out of the norm problems arise, and we should be more open-minded as a society to trying, like, to stop trying to just immediately judge somebody and make a problem out of it.
Listen,
and just try and go with the flow.
I think immediate judgment is required for all of life. Like, you need to be very, very careful before you move. Right? No,
we don't live in the fucking wilds of Africa anymore, man.
You got to be careful before. Look. I'm under the opinion that our society is already collapsing because of changes we've made, and we're still making more. So, we'll see. Time will tell. I think the century has proven conservatives correct every single time, and it doesn't mean that the consequences or the outcomes have been bad. It just means that the bad things that the conservatives said also always tend to come about, even if the good thing also happened.
That's a pretty broad statement.
I would have to build that case. It's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But look, man, radical changes require debate. I'm 100% glad that debates are happening about all this stuff. Yeah.
That's something we definitely agree on, right? Is more talk, more debate, more openness about, like, stop being I know our culture is making us afraid to talk about stuff, but we have to be able to do it. It's the only way you can make good decisions and understand where other people are coming from.
Yeah. And for those on the left, like shutting down conservatives is just about the worst thing that you can do, right? And I know most people don't do that, but like for the hardcore progressives, like, you need to hear this. Like, my mind has been changed on so many things, right? Including the trans issue, right? Like just almost all of the social issues I have been moved on because I was able to talk to people and people trusted me enough to talk about these issues with me, right? And like I've moved on so many different things, and that would not have happened if I had been shoved off to the side of society and just like simply radicalized with the alt-right because I'm oh, I think the pay gap is not real, so I'm a sexist. Is that really what we're going with? Oh, okay, all right. So you know what? Fuck you. You know, maybe women are inferior. You know, like that kind of bullshit. Like, stop. Just like you expand your Overton window, people. Like, there's a lot of ground to be made. Conservatives are going to keep conserving. We're gonna be fighting you on every single issue because it's good to preserve the society that you had and then make slow, good movements. Right? We're gonna knock down 9 out of 10 of your bad ideas, and then hopefully the one good one gets through.
Yeah. So we're coming up on the end of the podcast. We got just a couple minutes left. I want to throw up a one of those not really related to politics, although this kind of fits into the joke itself is somewhat racist. Not against blacks though. So there's that. It's funny though, so I'm going to throw it up anyway. The joke says, I found out on Fiverr.com you can buy 1,000 likes for $5. The only thing is that the likes come from the Middle East and they all have Arabic names. So when I saw that my friend tweeted, excited for my flight to New York City, I immediately spent the best $5 of my life.
Oh my God.
It's so terrible, but funny.
That's messed up. Good. That's humor though. Like, okay, so for everybody who freaks out about any sort of phobic jokes, that's about thousands of people dying in New York City, and it's fucking hilarious, right? Because that's what humor is. Humor is breaking rules, and if you can't break rules, humor dies in, I don't know, gulags. So
yeah. So I thought ending on a funny one, but one that's I mean it's touchy, but you know it's meant for humor.
Not. That's a good joke. That is a good joke. And
I don't know if the picture of the guy is the guy who wrote it or what. I just happened to run across this one. And,
well, it's the internet, so
yeah, who knows? But I mean, I immediately was like, if that's true, I might do that to one of my friends. Like next time I know
feel like
someone's
all those
flying.
scenarios they put up are kind of like not straw men, but like they
make up the story to make it fit the joke.
Fantastical kind of elements out of something.
Yeah.
Kind of true.
Okay. Yeah. So our producer said that was the comedian. And then here's one for us to think about for next one. We're not going to talk about it. I just want to read the headline. U.S. church membership falls below majority for the first time. So ruminate on that one. Maybe we can talk about it another day. That was one that I was hoping we'd get to, but we didn't.
Yeah, there's, and we'll close up on this. There was actually, I saw that article juxtaposed with an article that was written in like 2013. I forgot how long ago exactly. It was like 2011 or 2013 that said by 2020, the church-going folks are no longer going to be a majority in the country. And then it's like,
damn, they nailed that shit.
They nailed it. Yeah, it's perfect. So, all right,
nailed it like Jesus to the cross. Oh God. That was too far.
Church. All right, Tim, why don't you button us up? You started us. So.
Yeah. Hey, let us know what you thought of the, oh man, my brain just went blank.
The fresh format, the fresh new
format. Thank you.
It's probably not going to be permanent, but
let us know what you thought of the format, the free flow conversation, the just story to story, not really trying to dig too deep on anything, but just touching on a couple things. The 2-man type of thing. If you like this, once Chris is back, maybe we'll start trying to do a couple separate, 2-man things off on the side. Not necessarily me and Nate, but just 2 out of the 3 if it's fun. I mean, we definitely want to keep the 3 of us, but if this is something people are interested in, we can look at trying to add some more content for you. So let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, click all the buttons for us. It helps us out. And definitely, if you have questions or thoughts, you want something you want us to talk about, put it in the comments. Let us know, and we'll try and add it to the next one. Peace out.
Word.